What up? Yeah, we talking about all y'all out there with them dated ass snares. Yeah, I said it. Y'all go and y'all run to these music reviews and y'all get y'all shit reviewed and they play the track and they play it through and all of a sudden they get to the beat part and they like, first thing they say to y'all and they hurt y'all feelings. Hey man, that snare right there, come closer to the screen. They say come closer. Now come a little bit closer. That snare is dated. That motherfucker dated, and it hurt your heart, and it hurt your feelings, and you be like, damn man, damn, and you be thinking like, damn, you right. It ain't nothing new. It's just a snare. And that's the thing about it. Y'all got to think it can't just be a snare. I know y'all wanted it to just be a snare. I know y'all want to go in and y'all want to just play a snare. Y'all want it to just be a snare. That ain't the way to do it. That ain't the way to do it. What you need to do is you always layer the snare with some form of cymbal or some form of tambourine or something of that sort. Something that you could carry the higher ends of the snare, because a snare drum is really more mid and more lower mid as far as where its thump comes from. And then everything that runs off from the high ends is just what you get from the aftershock of hitting the actual snare. You have to add to it if you want to get that somewhat, I would say, that 90s sound, 80s sound, that hard hitting sound like early 2000s. Because most snares that y'all sample, y'all gotta think, if you don't sample snares, you need to be sampling snares and kicks. But if you don't have no snares that are sampled, to know that every snare is layered with some type of hi-hat or tambourine, because it's coming from either some soul music or break beat or something of that nature, or you snipping it out of a part that you think is dry, but the hi-hat is still playing on it. You know what I'm saying? And it's not hard to layer it. I'm not saying you gotta go out and you gotta buy real instruments, but I'm saying it's gotta be something like a tambourine. And every time you hit the snare, every time they hear it, it's gonna hit. And on top of that, you can mix it in to the snare. You don't have to have that certain portion of the soundtrack high. You just mix that in with the snare. But every time that snare hit, you want that effect you get when you hear like a high pitched sound, like a siren. You squint your eyes because your ears adjust to those highs. But not saying y'all need to go out and kill their ears. You need to make them recognize that snare, and then make them recognize a different texture of that snare. Take that tambourine or that clash or that hit, that whatever you find, that little bit of sounds, those little sounds that are in, like, let's just say you go through an MPC and they have those extra sounds and stuff that you have, like percussion sections, and they have sounds is where it sounds like a tambourine instrument or like a percussion instrument. That's where you place that particular instrument to hyphen a snare. You know what I'm saying? You could layer a snare with another snare. I'm not against that. But if you've already got a snare that sounds good, the best thing you need to do is not overdo it. What I've learned is to make them recognize that snare. That snare might not have enough power in that higher frequency. But you don't want to go in and try to over adjust its tune. That's defeating the purpose of picking the actual snare. You would just move on to the next snare if you gotta boost so much of the highs to just over exaggerate the snare. What you want to do is you want to fill in that area with something that can be more effective and give more character to the snare, because the normal person can't tell what's going on when that hits on that snare if you layer it with a real like, not saying you have to have a real tambourine, so don't get me wrong. I ain't saying you gotta go get, I ain't saying you go buy out tambourines. I ain't trying to make tambourines go in back order, so y'all don't run out and buy tambourines. What I'm saying is, inside your system or whatever you're doing, in the computer, FL Studios, MPC, whatever down the line, layer the snare with something that can be on top of that snare, and it can fill in that registry to where it is recognized as something new. It's recognized as something that's really hitting, and it gives a different texture and it gives a different feeling. Because you can EQ a snare to hell, but if it really sounds like a snare that's already been used, then the only thing left to do is to actually layer it with something that's totally different from it. If you layer it with another snare, you're just adding into that, to its frequency. And you could do that if you're missing stuff. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes you run into a little bit of phase issues because some snares are just so similar that its phase is so alike, and you cancel out certain frequencies. I ran into that too. But I've learned, if you're gonna do it the most organic and right way, just if you would have had a snare in the room, a realistic snare, and you was like, that snare sounds good, but we need to add something. Well, you need to tell, if it's a band, you need to tell the percussion player to hit some on that snare. Every time that snare hit, I need something crashing if I want it to be different. In this song, I want this played on this part. I might even just want like some simple shakes to be played on that part. It might just be I want to hit the hi-hat, like the open hi-hat just a little bit, just psh, psh, you know what I'm saying, on that one part of that snare, just to make it come out every time it hit, just to bring it out in the mix. You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all will probably get creative enough to implement this already in your actual snare, because to be honest, you can layer your snare with another layer. I think you can layer up to four layers, if I'm not mistaken, on most MPCs. I haven't moved over to 3.0 or 3.4 or whatever the new upgrade is. I ain't moving over to it, but until I really got to, because I love the old system. So, but anyway, you gotta layer that snare for it to not be dated. You gotta layer it with something that's organic and right, to fill in to a point when every time that snare hit, you like, man, it's to the point to where somebody can't really distinguish. They know the snare is there and the snare is hitting, but they can't distinguish this snare from another song, because you've mixed something into it, a different element in at a different volume level, a different mix level, different tastes of tone, and each one of these different elements, to the point to where you've gotten so complex to where nobody can tell the next one down the line. Because if you just raise the volume of the tambourine, it's going to change the effects. If you lower the volume of the tambourine, it's going to change the effect of it hitting with the snare. That's what you got to think about, and that's what you got to educate your mind on, as far as not having some dated ass motherfucking snares, nigga. Because all y'all niggas be out there, y'all be using stock ass snares. Go sample you some goddamn snares, or go to easki.com and buy you some goddamn drums, the right drums. Like straight up, yeah, that was a plug, because them shits work. You know what I'm saying? Them shits work, or go sample you some snares. But all y'all out there using these stock ass snares, these dated ass snares that's in the MPC today that it come with, stop that. Go find you some other textures, then add another layer to it. That way you can enhance your sound. But all of this dated ass snares and sending these thin ass snares and these thin ass beats to these reviews with a good ass song, and he looking at you like, the song good, but you gotta do something about that snare. That snare, that motherfucker dated. And they know it. And they ain't saying dated, they saying that motherfucker sounds stock like a motherfucker. They sound stark like a bitch. You better go get you some EA ski drums or something, nigga. You better go sample you some drums. Cause them shit sound stark like a motherfucker. I'm just saying though, bro. Them shit sound stark. Better do something about that. These dated ass snares. Y'all tripping. Y'all out there. Hey, I want you to let me know what you think in the comments. Because I know I got some experts, pros, hobbyists, whoever you are, beginners, whoever you are. It might be a beginner out there that might have a new technique that I might be able to use. You let me know down in the comments. But from that, I'm gonna let y'all have it. Peace.